Hi, Avery. I just wanted to let you know I'm here and I got your repeat PowerPoint, so I'm ready to click through on that.
Perfect. Great. Yeah, I'll have oh, I turned it off. I'll have my camera off for a majority of the press or was it off? What are you doing,
Was
camera?
off.
Okay, interesting. I will have my camera on and do like an intro, and then turn it off. So then I can have my computer closer to my face. I don't think
Okay.
anyone wants to look at my pores. So um
I feel you.
we're gonna
Uh,
we're gonna make
Um,
it work. But yeah, and I say like I have a little bit of intro info before we get into like the meat of it. So I'd say like let's plan to start at like 6:03. Like give people 3 minutes to log in, and then if they're still logging in the first couple minutes of the presentation, that's
mhm.
fine. It's Sunday night. I know people
Right.
have like laundry and meal planning to do, so
Totally. Yeah.
I
Thank you
want
for
to
doing
honor
this
that.
on a Sunday.
No, you guys are so on top of it. I was like really happy. We were like, do you want to do this in September? I was like, yeah, I will do it then. This is very far in advance. I'm happy to do it then.
Oh, that's very funny. Kate told me that you were like ready to go and you wanted to do it in August. And I was like, I cannot do it in August. I will be out of town. So how about September? So we were jazzed to go. And apparently no one told you we were that excited. So thank you.
I, well, yeah, no, it's just, no, I know in the previous years it's been a bit of a like last minute things come together thing. And so I was really happy to see that it's not so last minute because as a former training manager, it was killing me a
Oh,
little to see
yeah.
that happening. So, no, but yeah, that's good. I mean, this will be a little different than what Kate has seen in the past because I used to do one that was specifically just for JLS, but this
Yeah.
is the training that I've done for other organizations and other junior leagues as well. So, but I can point to the junior league, our specific resources that we have. So that will work out. And hopefully it's a little different than because I've done this four, maybe five.
Hmm.
This might be my fifth time that I've done this. So for a lot of people, I think it will be their first time seeing it, but
Hmm.
there are a few repeat people on there and I'm like, okay, let's keep it fresh. So um we will do that and yeah, are you and say if it's a no, it's fine. Are you comfortable doing breakout rooms?
Sure. Um, give
If
me
it's a
like one,
no, if it's a no, we can
give me one sec to make sure I can do these. Yeah, how big would you want the great breakout rooms to be?
just like five people in it, like each one, and it doesn't have to be particular. It'd just be like very quick, five 5 minutes at the very end of
Okay.
like an activity wrap up thing.
Yeah,
So yeah, so
definitely. Yeah,
I'll give
we
you
can do
a
that.
little bit of warning and I'll be like, okay, Courtney, start working on breakout rooms.
Okay, I can do that.
And then I can go over what the activity is. It'll be easy. I personally hate breakout rooms, but like I think that it's better to do it this way than to have everyone doing the activity together. So
Mhm.
we'll get that done. But we'll try to be as efficient as possible. If it gets very loud, maybe an hour in, I apologize in advance. My husband took my 2-year-old out, but I don't know how long the 2-year-old will stay out. And he's a beast. He's gonna come in yelling. So
I love that. I just got off the ferry and there was a very, very loud toddler on the ferry. And like the parents were just done. Like they had clearly
yeah.
been with them all weekend and they were just like, please God, just let us be home.
Because did you go Orcas Islands or
We went
San
to San
Juan's?
Juan Island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Uh,
remember that in an email. I was like, I sent you the email and I was like, God, I know she's like rushing to get home. I hope this doesn't
That's
stress her
okay.
out, me sending this email.
Totally, totally fine. We made it home with plenty of time, so all good.
Good, good.
Um, and then I will do a quick like intro, but like you can give
Cool.
more about yourself. I just want to double check before I do it wrong in front of 60 people. Avery Berschauer is how you pronounce it.
Shower. So like cold shower. That's how I tell people.
Berschauer.
Yeah.
Berschauer. Thank you. I'm so glad I asked.
It's fine. I'm used to many many a pronunciation. So I was
Wow.
actually very surprised this past year how many people actually said my name right. And I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, well, you're the president. Of course we're going to get it right. I go, there's no, of course, that goes hand in
Of
hand with
course.
the
No,
pronunciation of my last name. So,
no, but I prefer to ask rather than be mortified after the fact or whatever.
I mean,
So
it looks like there's a lot of potentially provisionals on here. Like I was looking through the names and I was like, I don't recognize a lot of these names. So,
yeah,
you just would have created a new pronunciation for a new era of junior leaguers. So it's
awesome.
fine.
Well, let's see. We have 3 minutes to go. Do you want me to start to open the room right at 6:30?
Um,
Otherwise, we're gonna have to make chit chat.
sure. Let's open it at 6:30. And then,
Uh-huh.
if how many people does it say how many people are in the waiting room currently?
6.
Okay. Let's let's go into 6:05 then. If there's only that amount of people.
Yeah.
Um, because I don't
7.
want a bunch of people missing it. 7. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So I
So,
expect a bunch of people will join in the last like 2 minutes. That's usually
yeah.
what
Yeah.
happens, right?
Well, yeah, because
But
otherwise you are just staring at each other. And I think a lot of people are like, I'm not getting on early.
yeah, exactly. So I'm like, I'm not gonna open it early because instead I get to chat with you for a quick minute. Um, and then do you want me to interrupt you with questions? Will you pause for questions? How do you want me to manage questions that come in via the chat?
So I will pause periodically, but since you're advancing the slides, if there is a question that comes in that's pertinent to that slide, then feel free to chime that in and I can answer that before we move on.
Okay. Sounds
Great.
good. I will keep it going.
Yeah, and that's my goal. I get very chatty on this topic, so my goal is to keep it going as well.
Awesome. Cool. And then my goal is also to not forget to do a meeting attendance report. Um, there's so many things to do when you're like the meeting organizer. I've never appreciated it so much.
Yeah, I mean, just you can just ask them to make sure that they're updating their name properly of
Mm,
how it will be in the junior league system because
hmm
sometimes it will just be a phone number or something and then it gets confusing. Um, and for future training, something I've always found helpful, especially if you do
hmm
a training where you have multiple leagues on it, just make a
hmm
Google form. Just have them be
Oh.
like, this is my name, this is my league. And then if it's multiple leagues, the thing's really nice is you can download that into a spreadsheet and then you
hmm
can sort it by league.
hmm
As you can tell, I did this for a while.
Yeah, you're like a pro.
Right? Yeah. I did 2 terms as training manager, which is now Kate, who's training director.
Awesome.
So
Is
that's always helpful. So you can just ask them to update that and
there
yeah, and
any other
then
housekeeping things that you can think of that you prefer as you do this
I
that I
would
can
I would
announce?
just say just make sure that you remind people if they don't immediately have a question or we aren't doing a discussion piece to make sure they're muted, especially since you're recording, because that always gets really awkward when someone doesn't realize they're not muted and then they're like yelling at their significant other, being like, the rice is in the pantry. And then you're like, hey, Carol, can you mute yourself? Thanks.
100% been that person, both
Yep.
sides. All right. It is 6:30, so do you want to open it up and we can get going? But we
Perfect.
won't
Yeah.
actually start the session until 6:33. There's 24
Yeah.
people now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's give 3 minutes and then we'll get started. Just let people know they can like get a drink or something. Or
Okay.
change their names in Zoom.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna invite everyone in and we'll be good to go. everyone, as you are joining and getting started, please go ahead and mute yourself. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes, so if you need to grab something to drink or anything, please do that. We'll get started about 6:33, 6:34, as we still have lots of people joining. The other thing that would be great is if you could update your name to reflect the name that you use with Junior League so we can use that to take attendance. That would be fantastic. And we still are lots of people joining via the waiting room. So if you're just joining us, we'll get started in a few minutes. If you could, please change your name to reflect what you use with Junior League so we can use that for attendance. And we'll get going here pretty soon, just a minute or two. I'm going to go ahead and get started, and then people will continue to trickle in. So I'll make a couple announcements as we go. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us on a Sunday evening. My name is Courtney Price. I am the Civic Engagement and Advocacy team member, and I worked with Avery to plan this event. So thank you all for joining us. This is my first year as an active Junior League member, so I'm very excited to be diving in so early in the year with the training committee. And a couple quick housekeeping things. Please go ahead and mute yourself if you're not already. Feel free to be on camera or off. We will be doing great breakout rooms later, which we will do right towards the end. So just everyone be aware of that. If you have any questions throughout the event, please go ahead and utilize the chat feature. I will be monitoring that throughout the event, and we will make sure we get your questions asked. So again, thank you, everyone. And I'm here to introduce Avery Berschauer. Avery is the former JLS president. So she was the president my provisional year, which was very exciting. She is also a Seattle-based DI, inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility consultant. Avery partners with businesses and organizations to create inclusive cultures that celebrate individuality and foster belonging. She's the founder of AB Inclusion, a consultancy focusing on advancing equity and inclusion, and shares her personal experiences on her podcast, Basically Blind, which I have listened to many episodes of now and feel very much like I've gotten a preview and I loved listening to that. So, Avery, one of my questions is when will you be doing more podcast episodes? And she is an alumni of Washington State University and lives in West Seattle. And Avery, I will turn it over to you to introduce yourself.
Yes, yes. So, while I'm talking, Courtney, feel free to bring up the slides so we are efficient as possible. Because I was
Awesome.
telling Courtney, I understand it's Sunday night. We have laundry that we need to do. So, we have clothes to wear tomorrow. We have meal planning so we don't starve the entire week. So, we're going to try to keep this as quick pace as possible. Um, but I do want to make sure that there is plenty of time for me to answer any of your questions. But yes, as Courtney said, my name is Avery Berschauer. I use she, her pronouns. I identify as a white woman. I'm in my 30s. And something that some folks on this line may not know, but I am legally blind. And I'm also had a late in life diagnosis of ADHD. And once I knew I had ADHD, it got a lot easier to tackle things and get things done in an efficient manner. But I always kind of thought that there was something wrong and that I was lazy for the longest time. And when I say late diagnosis, I mean I went my entire life up until a year and a half ago. I, like many people, saw a few TikToks that were like, oh, do you do this and do you do this? You might have ADHD. For the record, I did not self-diagnose myself. That gave me a nudge and made me wonder, and I did go to a professional. So I'm a huge advocate for if you think that something's not quite right or something's wrong, you know yourself better than anyone else, and make sure you advocate for yourself. I know a number of people on this call have gone through this training before. This will be a little different though. In the past, this training has been very focused on specifically our inclusive event checklist, and a lot of that stuff we'll be going over. This does have more of a slant on inclusive event planning, but also educating around disability advocacy and accommodations and what it means to create an accessible event. There's a lot of ways that people will look at that term, accessible or inclusive. And I'm a true believer that a lot of terms that are regularly seen as terminology within the disability community, they apply to a lot of people who may not themselves identify as having a disability themselves. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn off my camera so that I can be closer to my computer screen without having you guys having to like see every pore on my face. But yeah, we will hop right in. Um, you know yourself best, as I had said before. So if you do need to run to the restroom, if you need to take a break, if you need to stand up and stretch, that's something great about virtual events. You can totally do that. Please take care of yourself. If this was something I was doing in person, I probably would be putting in a few little breaks for people. But again, we want to be as efficient as possible. So with that, we'll jump in on planning inclusive events. Let's go to the next slide, Courtney. Okay. So we're going to do a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. So we're going to go over the importance of inclusive events and why we should be planning them, the difference between apparent and non-apparent disabilities. Um, we'll be going through some terms to build your idea, which is what I really enjoy calling it idea. So inclusion, diversity, accessibility, or sorry, wow, I can't even spell inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. Um, to build that vocabulary. Some of these will be very familiar terms that you probably already know, but whenever we're doing a training, we need to remember that people come in at different set points. So I'll make sure we're taking everyone along with us. We're going to go over the best practices for all events. So that includes in-person versus virtual. And if you're doing a hybrid event, you would want to be incorporating both of those best practices. Um, We're also going to go over some inclusive presenting tips. And then we will go over things to consider, like I said, with an in-person versus a virtual event and how to tailor those both into hybrid. So we will jump into the next slide. All right. So um, if you want to just say something, feel free to come off of mute for this. If not, feel free to put something into the chat and Courtney will make sure to read that aloud. But I would love to hear what you all think before I give my own definitions of, why do you think that it's important for us to plan inclusive events? And along with that, why do we think it's taken so long for there to be an emphasis put on inclusive event planning and accessible event planning? Anyone? I can get very comfortable with silence. So
I was gonna say, so people with disabilities can have access to events.
that's a very good reason. Yes.
I think one
And
of
I
the
see
reasons
Alex.
it's taken so long is that there's a lot better way to publish events now in ways that we might not have used to, or like actually be able to. We can publicize things through more than just word of mouth. And I think people are more intentional with inviting a broader group of people to events now, which is excellent. And with that, there are new steps that have to be taken as more and more folks come to events.
Excellent. Totally agree.
I have a couple comments in the chat. One is to foster belonging, community acceptance, so everybody feels seen and acknowledged. Another is it's important so people feel welcomed and included. And inclusive events can drive better engagements and retention. And to make content accessible to everyone.
Love it. Love all that. Yes, all of this and more. So let's go to the next slide. We'll go into what I have written down here. So why inclusive events matter. Inclusive events matter because it improves the experience for everyone. It reduces the uncertainty or awkwardness that people who may have needs that are frequently overlooked may encounter when going to an event. I have plenty of stories of things like that happening to me. It's why I care about this subject so much. Um, and and as it was said in the chat, it really helps organizations to make sure that they're building a culture that puts the emphasis on belonging and inclusion and driving social change. If you're modeling it, then you're really helping to create that change. And another thing too is that it it wasn't really the norm there for a long time to make sure that in the planning experience that you weren't planning for what the majority of people's needs were. There, especially during the COVID era and such, there was um, definitely a lot that came out around, hey, like there are ways that we can do this very easily so that other people can see what's going on or take in the information better. And that could mean different learning styles, that could mean visual impairments, that could mean hearing impairments, that can also mean some people may not be able to comfortably sit through a long event and making sure that there are those built-in breaks and such. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so here are some statistics around specifically around people with disabilities, just to kind of paint a picture of this demographic. So again, why it's important is you want to make sure that for events that you're able to cater to the largest amount of people possible and give all those people a good experience. And 1 in 4 adults within the US lives with a disability of some kind. So if you aren't taking into account just basic accommodations, you in a sense, are potentially losing out in 1 in 4 people that could be attending an event that you're putting on. Older adults, women, and racial minorities are all statistically more likely to have disabilities. Although I will say this, I did look up the statistic, and the one thing that men are more likely to have is color blindness. I think that that statistic is something like 1 in 8 men, and I think for women it's like 1 in 200. So we got it there. But unfortunately, like I said here, if you're older, if you are a woman, or if you um, are a person of color, it is a higher likelihood that through intersectionality you also identify as having a disability. So some recent numbers I was able to get was in 2024, 22.7% of people with disabilities um, were employed. Um, and that is compared to 65% for people who identify as not having a disability. Um, I bring this up just because it's just good to know that what the scope of our society is right now and currently. And something that I know I've gone through when it is going through the hiring process is that it is, although that there are plenty of things in place where, equal opportunity employer, there isn't outward discrimination, there still can be stigmas that people will hold, such as, maybe this job is very visually based, and I have a resume that has gotten me to an actual in-person interview. But then if at some point it needs to be disclosed, or if I bring up that I have a visual impairment, if the person who's doing the hiring cannot wrap their head around how I could do that job with low vision, I'm instantly going to be dismissed as not the top candidate, even if I can do it and it's just different than what other people would think. And that's something to keep in mind when you're doing, if you're trying to enlarge your own team, when you are part of an interview process, if you're part of a recruitment process, or you're promoting an event. Those are all things to make sure that you're keeping in mind. And from a business standpoint, because, money talks, and if you're trying to be making change within an organization, especially if it's within the corporate world, they want hard numbers. Most recent numbers say that the buying power of people who identify as having a disability in the US is $490 billion dollars. And that goes up exponentially if you start taking into account the people that are also within that household, or they are close to someone who has a disability, and they could be influenced to want to spend money with an organization or a company that is putting forth an emphasis on making sure that things are inclusive to everyone. Next slide. Okay, so here's a fun one. So we're going to talk about apparent versus non-apparent disabilities. So an apparent disability, this is one where just by looking at someone, you're like, oh, okay, this person has disability. Maybe they're in a wheelchair. Maybe you can see that they have a hearing aid. Maybe, maybe they have a white cane, or they have a seeing eye dog, and that lets you know that they have low vision, which, to be fair, someone can have a service animal that isn't a seeing eye dog. That still is an indication. I just want to make sure I'm being inclusive in my inclusive event planning presentation here. A non-apparent disability, this is something that you can't just automatically look at someone and know. So, for example, if I'm walking around and I have my cane, that's a clear indicator. That's an apparent disability that I can't see well. And it's why I use the cane, because for a long time I didn't use it, and people they just thought I was the clumsiest person on the face of the planet. Um, but it doesn't really matter what I'm wearing, what I do, anything. You're not gonna be able to just look at me and go, she has ADHD. That is something that you can't just automatically tell. So this is the reason that we want to distinguish this, and these used to be known as invisible versus non-invisible disabilities, but that gives the impression that people are trying to hide their disability, and that's really not the case. It's just the fact that it's not just overtly obvious. Um, but want to point this out just because you may be looking at everyone that comes to your event and go, we did all this stuff for inclusion, but I don't really see anyone here that has a disability. Well, there's not a parent, and that does take up a huge amount of that 1 in 4 people. Lots of people have anxiety, they have depression, they have ADHD, they could have diabetes, they could have epilepsy. There are all kinds of things that people might need an accommodation for that you can't just tell off the bat. So that's why we're pointing that out there. I will pause for a moment because I've gone over a lot of information already and I'm a fast talker. Are there any questions so far with what I've gone over?
Don't have any in the chat so far, but if you do have a question, please feel free to chat it and let us know.
Perfect. Let's go to the next slide then.
Okay.
Okay, so bear with me. This is going to be, we're going to go through a stretch of some vocab terms, and then we will get into exactly what you all were wanting to be here for, which is the tips on planning inclusive events. But we're making sure that we have a solid foundation before we jump into that. So terms that probably a lot of you are very well aware of, but just to make sure we're all coming from the same place. Diversity, this encompasses a variety of characteristics that people can be distinguished as and different identities they might have. So that could be if they identify as LGBTQIA or anything other than that. It could be the religion that they choose to practice. It could be their racial identity, disability. It could be their military status, whether they're military, non-military, or former as a veteran. Equity is the fair and just practices and policies that make it so everyone can thrive. So a really good example of this is accommodations. Accommodations are a practice that really help with equity because you are making little tweaks within an environment. And it's one of our vocab terms, so I'll go over it, but you're making small tweaks that make it so that someone who may have one identity. So if someone is blind, for example, and I will pull from that a lot since that's my own experience. But if someone is blind, then, making it so in school, for example, I was able to have more time for taking my tests and I went to a separate space where I could adjust the lighting and things like that. So it was just giving me the same opportunity to be successful that someone who doesn't have a visual impairment would have. Inclusion. This is being valued, being respected, and being welcomed into an environment. So this is, ways that you can make sure that you are practicing this and you can put this into practice at the upcoming GMM is if you see someone that doesn't look like they're there with someone or they don't see one of their friends, that you're not just going, oh, that person looks alone, but you are genuinely going up to them. You're introducing yourself. You're saying, hey, you're asking if they want to sit with you, making sure that they feel valued, they don't feel ignored, they feel part of the community. And that's something that can also be done at community facing events where we go up to people who are part of the public that are coming to our events and engaging with them, asking them questions, making sure that they know they're appreciated for attending, and we get to know them a little bit better as well. Next slide. Okay. Other terms to know. Person first language versus identity first language. So person first language within the world of disability, this is when you are addressing someone and you would put whatever identity they hold second. So for example, it'd be like a person with low vision. a member of the blind community, things along those lines. If you're putting identity first, that's when you would say a blind person, a deaf person, an autistic person. When in doubt, use person first language. The majority of communities within disability, that is their preference. There are certain groups that they do prefer identity first. And the two that I can think of are the autistic community and the deaf community. They prefer to put the identity first. I will tell you, some people can be very, very temperamental about it. I'm not one of those people. You can call me a person who is blind, you can call me a blind person. Um, I mean, just like don't call me a mean name, but I'm really not going to get upset about anything along those lines. But a disclaimer I would give is to make sure that you are actually using proper terminology and not doing something like differently abled or handy capable or anything like that. Differently abled is just frankly not even accurate. We are all differently abled. And so that just doesn't make sense. And handy capable, we just need to get away from the idea that the word disability is a bad or shameful word. I have a disability. I have multiple disabilities. I'm fine with that. That's just how it is. And handy capable is a term that more often than not is used because that's something that people who don't have a disability feel more comfortable saying than just saying disability. So I am here telling you that disability is not a bad word. And when you are speaking to a group, it's best to play it safe and use person first, but make sure if you are speaking to a specific community you know that you're going in front of, do a little research and find out if there are any best practices around that, if they do prefer identity first. Next slide. Okay, I believe that this is our last vocab slide. So thanks for hanging in there. So accessibility is the design of environments or products so that they can be used by all people. And then, so a great example of this, I always use this, is when you're going to a building and they've made it more accessible, a lot of times it will have a ramp in the front. But those ramps were initially put there for someone with a disability. However, I think a lot of us can agree if you've ever had to move in and out of an apartment building and it's only a walk up or something like that, it genuinely makes everyone happier if there are ramps and elevators when you're going through things, or if you have kiddos and you have them in a stroller and you're trying to manage them. So it's a thing that, yes, it made it more accessible for specifically someone who had a mobility disability, but it makes it usable for all people, and overall it improves the experience for all people. Assistive technology. So these are any devices, software, or equipment that can be used to help people work around challenges that they may have. So I use a magnifier app on my own phone. That's a good example. My cane that I use is considered a piece of assistive technology that helps me to move around. And something until I went through mobility training with the cane, I never knew, and I always share, is that if you see people out with canes, they're not all just white canes. The one I use, it's white and it has like on the first fourth of it at the bottom is a red tip. That indicates that I have low vision. I still have some vision, but I do need, I can't rely on it without a cane to be able to get around easily independently. If you see a cane that is completely white, that means that that person's vision is at a low enough level that they really don't have any sight that they're leaning on heavily. And if you see a cane that alternates white and red, kind of like a barbershop pole or a candy cane, something along those lines, that means that that person identifies as being legally blind and legally deaf. So That's a fun fact, something I didn't know up until I had my mobility training about, I'd say 7 years ago now. And I think it's fun to know. The last word we have here is accommodation. So this is providing supplies, technology, or making changes to an environment or a task, though, so it is easier for someone to be able to accomplish their goals. So, like I talked about, I got accommodations with testing. When it comes to work, sometimes people do need accommodations to permanently work from home because it's just easier. Other accommodations might be that someone needs to be working in an area that isn't super noisy because maybe they get overstimulated a lot, or um, they need to have a more flexible working schedule due to other things going on. Maybe that has to do with their own health or the health of someone else in their household, and they need the flexibility to go to doctor's appointments. So those are all examples of accommodations. So those are all the vocab. Are there any questions around any of these terms before we head into the next part? Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right. So as I mentioned before, yes, the beginning was very heavy on setting the scene for kind of what the lay of the land is for the disability community. But you need accommodations and you need things to be accessible for you, even if it's life circumstances and it isn't that you have a disability. And I'm a huge proponent to this. So it could be a life circumstance. Maybe you need things to be changed because of the arrival of a new baby, uh, caring for a family member of all ages. It could be an older parent and it could be a younger child. It could be, you could have extensive work travel. This is something within the junior league is very important to keep in mind, and is something that I remember when I was a provisional advisor, making sure I was finding ways where I could connect with all the new members in my group in a way that worked for them. Because this is a really smart, capable, and very goal-oriented group of women. A lot of times that means that they have very high demand uh, positions that they have at work, and that could require a lot of travel. So making sure if they can't make a group meeting, maybe trying to schedule some one-on-one meetings with them, figuring out things that they can accomplish where they can do it on their own time as opposed to needing to meet up specifically with a group. Um, that's one to keep in mind. Other life circumstances. Someone may not be able to drive. It could be because of a disability. That is my personal case. It could be they don't have a car, or maybe they have a car, but it is currently out of commission for them. So that's important to keep in mind that, when you're planning an event, how easy is it for people to get to? Um, and this is something, even if you think the majority of people coming do drive, if you are serving alcohol in an event, also be keeping in mind how easy is it for people to do rideshare and other things, just to make sure that the event is safe as possible for everyone. Health concerns. So this could be someone has allergies, um, someone could have a health condition, and maybe it's temporary. Maybe it's the fact that they broke their arm, or they broke their leg. And so it's not a mobility issue that they always have, but while they have it, it's really difficult. And another one here is military leave. People, they may be active military, they could be in a reserve, and we need to make sure that we're creating ways that they're able to participate, and we're being flexible so that they're able to participate and not feel like if they can't show up the way that they always can, that's okay and it's understood, and that the flexibility piece is there. Um, is anyone else, because every time I do these trainings, people add things, feel free to add it into the chat or you can come off mute. But are there other life circumstances that you or someone where accommodations and that piece of their life being accounted into planning events or any kind of a group thing is helpful. Anything else that isn't on here? I'll go ahead and add that another thing to keep in mind when you're planning events too for a life circumstance is, religion in the sense that it's best to make sure that when you are picking a date that you're looking at the calendar and you're making sure it doesn't fall on any of the major holidays for any religion so that everyone is able to attend.
Someone in the group chat said pet health if they need to watch a sick animal for a bit of time. That isn't always
Mhm.
necessary. So health concerns of your pets and your family.
Yes. I mean, as someone who owns a dog and a cat, and they are they were my children before my 2-year-old human, I definitely consider that as taking care of members of your family of all ages.
Totally.
All right, let's go to our next slide.
Can I read the other couple that we just got in?
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Different financial circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Costs can sometimes be a barrier.
Mm-hmm.
Also time away from home if you can't be gone for a long time, like more than 4 hours to relieve a partner or babysitter or take care of an animal. So
Mm-hmm.
scheduling as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Different work schedules. Some people work non-traditional hours.
Mm-hmm. Yep. These are all great. These are all things. And I think that sometimes people can get a little nervous to approach people and say, hey, I do need to be accommodated. Have I had some bad experiences myself? Yes, I have. I have. But I will say a majority of the time, especially in a group where it's like the junior league where I am volunteering my time, people are really willing to work with you. And so that's something to keep in mind. Make sure that you are advocating for what you need. And if you get a bad reception, then I guess that kind of that gives you a heads up that either things within that organization need to change or maybe it's not the best place for you, but I personally advocate for you to make change within the organization. Let's go
Okay.
to the yeah. Was there anything else?
No, I was gonna say, do you want me to
Okay.
click ahead? But I just
Yes,
did.
yes, yes. Okay, so we're getting into what everyone wanted. Thank you for being open to learning all of that. So best practices for all events. So these are some things, regardless of whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, you should be keeping in mind. So make sure that you're prioritizing. And as I'm doing this, I'm realizing that I forgot to do something at the top of this, which was my land acknowledgement. Um, but make sure that you are prioritize inclusion accessibility at the start of the planning process. It can be very obvious when those pieces have just been thrown in as an afterthought. So make sure that you're keeping those top of mind when you start the planning process. Incorporate visual descriptions, captioning, ASL interpretation, and any other form or in live transcription for events when you're able to. Am I saying that you need to have a live ASL interpreter for every single one of the committee meetings? No, I am not saying that. But I am saying if you are doing something very large scale, open to the public, then that is something that you probably will want to keep in mind. And something else that you want to think about is that disabilities, they are on a spectrum. It isn't fair to assume that every single person who has low vision reads Braille and that every single person that has low hearing knows ASL. I can tell you as a fact that that is just not true. So even if you have an ASL interpreter, you would still want to make sure you have captioning and things like that. A lot of these things can just be automatically built in with current technologies. So when you can, just make sure that you're fully taking advantage of all those, so as many people can take part as possible. Um, Ask during the registration process if attendees need accommodations. That is something that I was very happy to see that at the international level with AJLI, they did include that within their registration for this last year's annual conference. And that is because a number of people complained, including myself, about accommodations from the previous year. I had a very difficult time at uh, the conference that was in New Orleans, but this last one that was in Orlando, it was a real night and day experience for me. And I was extremely happy to see the changes that were made, and that the 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 concerns that I brought up, they were not swept under the rug, but they were taken very seriously. So that was wonderful. Um, Share any supporting documents, slides, handouts, maps, anything that would help people to get more out of the event prior. Um, do you need to be giving like the full slide deck to everyone ahead of time? No, because it is that's a bit of a spoiler for if they have all the information, would they still come? However, if someone does request to have that, you know, especially if it's an in-person event, um, maybe like myself, they have low vision, or maybe it's just for ADHD purposes. It helps them to be able to follow along better by having something physical in their hands. That is a situation that totally makes sense. So you could put that just on a platform for people to be able to download. Um, and make sure that you are afterwards sending out satisfaction surveys for events. And the satisfaction surveys were the way that AJLI had gotten the majority of the feedback that they did, that accessibility needed to be ramped up more at their events, and they took it really seriously. Um, you never know if something needs to be changed unless you ask. And sometimes people will be very vocal. I'm one of those people. I have no problem being the squeaky wheel in the room, but for many people, that can be very uncomfortable. Um, any questions with any of these best practices?
We do have one question. Can you talk about the differences between captioning and ASL interpretation? What technologies do you recommend for live events that balance accessibility and cost?
Yeah, so I would say, so I talked about that a little bit. So for captioning, that is, you know, when you go down, you turn on like the CC, the closed captioning. So ASL, having an ASL interpreter would mean specifically at a live or a virtual event that you have someone who is signing everything that's being said. The difference between captioning and live transcriptioning is that the captioning that uses AI, and that will do it. And AI has come a long way, so it is a lot better than it used to be. A live transcriptioner is an actual human that is writing everything out. Um, the reason that the live transcriptioner can be better is that I think we have all had that moment when we are using speech to text, when we are sending a text message to someone and we say one thing, and what Siri will say we're saying is not at all what we said. And so that happens as well when you are using the AI captioning that's in things like Zoom. Um, Most of the main platforms, so uh, Google Meets, I think that's what it's called. It's changed its name a few times, but I think it's called Google Meets. So Google Meets, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, all those have very good built-in descriptions. Um, Another thing that can be very helpful, just from a productivity standpoint, but also, you know, for tailoring or to catering to different learning styles, is that A lot of these platforms also now have built-in note-taking pieces, so you can turn that on. You can automatically have a recap of everything that happened at your meeting. Because maybe you're talking things out, but someone really is a visual learner, and it helps them to really lock things down if they're able to read through everything that happened. And it's less work on your part, and that can be sent out to anyone that wasn't able to attend the meeting. So those are all pieces of it. With visual descriptions, so one way of doing visual descriptions, and this is not, you definitely don't want to go overboard with this, and I see it happen, um, especially on a virtual event or in an event where someone's up in front. If you just describe yourself, if you say, hi, my name is Avery. I have medium length blonde hair, hazel eyes, I identify as a white woman, go through those things, give the generals. I personally, and what some people do is they will describe the background, they will describe what their outfit looks like. If that pertains to what's going on, sure, say that. Like, if you're wearing a certain outfit and it has to do with what you're talking about, feel free to describe that. Same thing with the background. Otherwise, I as a visually impaired person will say I don't need to know that you're in front of a bookshelf. That's cool. I love that for you, but it's just it's not relevant for me getting what I need out of there. So that's how you can do visual descriptions, and I talk about later too, in some presenting best practices. Um, Visual descriptions also go into making sure that you are actually speaking to what is on a slide. It is one of my biggest pet peeves when I go somewhere and they have the slides and there's maybe a pie chart and someone goes, as you can see from the chart. No, no, I cannot see. And yes, I have a visual impairment. I know that that is my personal experience, but also someone could be sitting somewhere where they don't have a good view. Maybe they're having to take notes and so they're not looking up. There are a lot of reasons why someone may not automatically see. So if you have a pie chart, make sure you say something like, so from the chart that's on the slide, 90% said XYZ, 10% said this, and make sure that you are verbally describing everything that is on that slide that would help to give a full picture of the information that you're giving. Um, and I've been to events as well where they make it an option that even if it is a live event, they'll give you a Zoom link that you can join and they'll have a live audio description going. So they'll have someone there who is actively describing what's on the slides, who's coming to the microphone, what they look like. And that is really great. And that's a really great piece when you're going to like a live play. I have been able to take part in that before. And if you're ever wondering what that's like, you could go on, for example, Netflix or something like that, and they usually have an option for audio descriptions. Turn that on. It may drive you up the wall, quite frankly, if you don't need it. But as someone who does need it, it really increases the enjoyment level for myself. I will say that. So that was a huge tangent of an answer. I hope that fully answered that question in every possible way. And if there is something in particular I didn't hit on with that answer, just let me know. Okay. All right. If there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the next slide. All right. So, inclusive presenting. So this will go over some of the things that I spoke about a bit, but you want to make sure that you're asking the presenter to visually describe themselves. It can also be helpful to have them and participants share what their pronouns are, just because that makes it easier that, I've been at events where someone will say, he or she, and that's actually not the pronoun that I identify as. And so it can really avoid those moments, and allows people to just express how they want to be identified in a safe way. If a microphone is available, use it. One of my really good friends from college. She has a pretty significant hearing impairment, but she doesn't wear any hearing aids. I honestly didn't understand how bad her hearing impairment was, and we were college roommates. Yes, it is a little ironic, and I do know that, but and we're still friends, we still hang out, but one of her things is she gets very frustrating when she goes to events, and she came on a few of my podcast episodes, so she talks about this, but it is her personal pet peeve when she is at an event and there's a microphone and someone just goes, I don't need this, you can hear me, right? And she'll be so frustrated because she will purposely try to find a seat that's next to the speaker, as in the actual piece of equipment, not the person presenting. And and so she will position herself to be able to take full advantage with what's there. And when people don't use that equipment, it's very frustrating. So make sure you're using that microphone. And not only the person who is presenting, but if you are having questions, make sure you, at a minimum, are repeating that question into the microphone. If not, having a microphone that can people can come up to and ask their questions. Have presenters and participants share their pronouns. We went over that already. Make sure that, as I said, describe what's on the screen if there is an image. So that could be a graph, it could be a meme, it could be a GIF, anything like that. A GIF, if you want to call it that. I still call it GIF. Clearly state the meeting agenda at the beginning. This is just something that helps people understand the lay of the land, um, helps them clue in. And I can say, as someone who has anxiety, I really like to know what's coming. Um, and that was part of the reason we made sure that we let people know that there will be a brief breakout room section, but it will be very brief. It'll be very painless, but I do not like it when that is sprung on me at all. Ask participants to state their names before they speak. This goes twofold. One, if you're at an in-person event, like, people aren't going to be able to see your name tag all the time, depending at where you're at. If you are on a virtual meeting, the names are pretty small, and if you're going back and forth, it can be hard for people to keep up and place the name with the face or the voice in my case. Another way that this is really helpful is that if you're at a meeting where you have a secretary or a note taker, it's very helpful to make sure that people are stating their name beforehand so that they're able to really accurately take notes. And that also goes for live transcriptioning. It makes it easier for that person who's doing the live transcription to properly attribute things to people. Use colors with high contrast in presentations. So yeah, please don't do like a yellow on a light blue. No, that's not great. As we talked about, there are a lot of people that do have color blindness, but just beyond that, that's harsh on the eyes. You just want to make it really easy for people to be able to distinguish it, because especially if you're in a large room or something like that, if it's not high contrast, there's no guarantee that people sitting far away from the screen, even if they have decent vision, are going to be able to see that. And share information in multiple ways to make sure that you're accommodating different ability levels and learning styles. So that was a lot. I'm going to take a beat before we go on to the next slide. Are there any questions regarding what I went over on this slide or any previous slides? Okay, next slide. Okay, so virtual events, which are my personal favorite since I don't drive. We talked about before, make sure you're using a platform that has ample accessibility features. The main ones, such as Google, Microsoft Teams, and Zoom, those all have really good features. I really can't think of any off the top of my head that are a really bad example. Now here's one, the next piece, I'll give some caveats to this. Use chat features sparingly. Um, yes, I agree with this. However, I also fully understand that not everyone feels comfortable speaking up in a meeting. So do I use chat features during my trainings? Yes, I do. But I do go along with the best practice of making sure that questions and any helpful comments are being verbally shared out loud in the chat. Um, and another way that you could, instead of using chat, is you could use the features such as polling, or using meeting reactions. But what I recommend with making sure it's being read out loud is, not only is it that it makes it easier in the moment for people to follow what's being said, but when you are recording something, it doesn't also record the chat. So if something really helpful is being shared or asked in the chat, for you to be able to go back and get the absolute most out of that recording, it's really important to make sure that that's being shared out loud so it's captured in the recording. Also make sure that any kind of closed captioning or features, that those are transcriptioning, those are enabled so that people are able to use them. I think a lot of that has changed. It used to be that you had to, as the host, enable it. And I think that now, from what I've done in the past, at least, it's very much on your end that if you would like to use that, you can enable it yourself, which makes way more sense than it used to be, frankly. And make sure that you are sharing recordings and any additional resources within a timely manner with people. So the recording will be available of this. And then also after this, I'm going to send over to Courtney PDF version of the slides so that you all are able to look back at specific things that you find helpful, and double check that. Next slide. Okay, in-person events. Okay, so things to keep in mind with your in-person events is that you do want to evaluate the venue's accessibility, and that means a number of things this we've gone over. This is specifically here with this bullet point is talking about from a disability accessibility standpoint, but make sure that if there is an accessibility statement or guide that that venue has, make sure that you are reviewing that. If there is a map that's available, make sure that you are attending that ahead of time and you can share that with people. I mean, even if you are able to easily be like, oh, I need to go to room 101, it's really nice to also be able to glance at something and know where the restroom is. Consider the ease of getting to, entering and accessing the venue. So what that means is, is this a historical building that was grandfathered in, and so that there are just stairs that you have to take and there isn't any sort of a ramp or elevator inside? Um, and then, how easy once you're actually inside the venue is it? Like, are things properly marked? Are there handrails? All those things. And is the parking lot gravel? That may not mean something to you until you're in a position where it is an issue. So, if you have a stroller, if someone is in a wheelchair, or maybe you've broken your leg and you're on one of those little scooters, it's a lot harder to do that on gravel. So those are all things to keep in mind. And if there are any accessibility issues, just make sure that you are flagging those. Those need to be outlined and shared with people so you can put that on your website, being like, you know, little note, this, our event is being held in a historical building. This means that there unfortunately is not a ramp to lead up if this is an issue. Um, please keep this in mind, and we'd be happy to work with you because maybe there is a back entrance you could take them to. That's not the ideal situation, but also it's good to find workarounds if that's something that someone really wants to go to. there's much more coming with this one. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so more with in-person events. So other considerations. How far is this venue from the nearest public transportation? Where is the nearest parking? Are there accessible parking spots? Do you have to pay for this parking? Is it a lot of money? This is all things to keep in mind. With that list of life circumstances we talked about, a lot of this goes into these pieces of just how easy is it going to be to get into this specific venue from just a strictly transportation standpoint. Is it necessary to pass through a security checkpoint? This is something that people will overlook, but if you are not prepared for example, I think that there will be some future Junior League events that will be at Amazon buildings. You do have to go through a checkpoint with Amazon buildings. And if you're not prepared for that, it can really throw you off. So if that ever happens, please just make sure you have your ID handy when you're going to an Amazon facility, and then they will print that visitor pass for you. But it can really throw you off if you're not anticipating it. And, you know, if it's a day that you're just feeling frazzled and you left your ID at home or something, that yeah, you don't want to run into that. So just make sure you're letting people know if that's something they have to deal with. Event registration should be near the entrance with room for people to line up. If you don't have it centrally located, make sure that you're stationing people near the entrance as greeters to help point people in the right direction. I have been to multiple events where the check-in was not right near the entrance, and I have wandered lost for quite a while. So make sure that you're making it easy for as many people as possible to find where they're supposed to register, where they're supposed to be. Attendees may have food or animal allergies. Be keeping that in mind. So I think as a best practice, if something has a high tendency to have allergies with it, such as peanuts or something, maybe it's best to just not have that on the menu if you're building, you know, for example, box lunches, or if you have a buffet. And if you do have food out, it's really helpful to make sure that you can have some cards that list off the ingredients, because with apparent and non-apparent disabilities, food allergies can definitely be that way, where something may look like it doesn't have a certain ingredient in it, but it definitely does. And if if people have animal allergies, if you're using a space that is usually pet friendly, just make sure that you're asking for a really thorough vacuuming of that space. And if I ever host people over to my own home for a Junior League event, I'll let them know ahead of time, be like, hey, I have a dog, I have a cat. So if you need to take some extra allergy medicine before you come over, just be aware of that. And have space for nursing mothers and for neurodiverse attendees that could easily be overstimulated. I always include this because, listen, I'm not perfect. I screwed up on this one time. When I was provisional chair, I had a large meeting, and one of the new members came up to me and she asked me where she could go to pump, and I didn't have an answer for her. So that's something I always stress to people so that you can learn from my mistakes. And are there any we want to make sure that there are accessible and gender neutral restrooms available for people to use. And if there isn't a restroom that is specifically designated as gender neutral, is there potentially a single stall bathroom that you could just use as gender neutral? I'm a big fan of the fact that if it is a single stall facility, you really don't need to put men or women on it. Either one can do it. I first saw that in college at the Starbucks in Ellensburg, and if you know, you know, but they just have it where it's like anyone can go in this bathroom. If it's open, go in, and it's just so much more efficient, honestly. So those are a lot of pieces there. for in-person events, I want to say this before we go any farther. I'm going over a lot of information here, and I don't expect anyone to come out of this training and be like, I'm going to do every single one of these things for any event I'm part of, whether it is with the junior league or it's outside of the junior league. No, the purpose of this is to let you know what best practices are and for you to slowly over time incorporate these in. Some of these are kind of lower hanging fruit, um, making sure that you're describing what's on a slide to people. That's something that you could put into practice tomorrow. You know, if you're helping to put a registration for an event on, making sure that there's an ask of, do you have any accommodations that you need? Is there any accessibility that we can help you with? That's an easy thing. Some of these other things, they're a little bit more complex, and I get that. One thing that is really great about the Junior League of Seattle is that outside of just this presentation and these types of trainings, we do have an inclusive event checklist that is just a one-stop shop where you can look at everything that you should be including in events. And that lives on the website. If you go under My League, um, we rearranged it, and I should know this because Becca and I were the two that did all the rearranging with Allison. But it is a resource that lives under there. Um, and you can find that and you can use that for any of your events, whether it's junior league or not junior league related. That's a resource that is available to you. So I want to make sure that I'm not looking for perfection here. We're just looking for progress. So, um, I think that was the last in-person slide. Can we go forward one and see where we're at? And then yes,
Activity.
okay. So we're at activity. So before we hop into the activity, are there any questions? Because we're going to do this and then we're going to do our wrap up and we'll be done. Okay. So for our activity, you're going to be so Courtney is working on this right now, and she's going to be putting each of you into breakout rooms. There will probably be 5 of you in a breakout room. You'll have 5 minutes to do this activity. It's very easy. So, what I would like you to do in the breakout room is I'd like you to practice introducing yourself in an inclusive manner. So, by saying, your name, your preferred pronouns. You can share what identities you are comfortable sharing about yourself. If you are, white, if you have any disabilities, if you want to do that. And then, share one thing that you're going to take away from this training and try to implement into your next event or into, your daily routine if there is something that you felt really was pertinent to that. So, like I said, it's just going to be 5 minutes. And then when we come back, if anyone wants to, from those groups, just give a highlight of things that were said within their breakout room, that would be amazing. So, Courtney, are you ready with breakout rooms?
I am.
Okay, perfect. Let's
All right.
let's go.
Okay, we will see you all back here very soon.
Courtney, is it just you and me? I see.
We've done this exactly once.
Okay, excellent. It was you and me. No, you did a good job. This is the most efficient breakout room I've ever seen happen. There's always like 5 people that you're like, hi, you're supposed to be in a breakout room. Like,
Junior league people are we're very savvy.
I
You're
mean,
doing great. Thank you so much for this information. I wish I would have taken this and then led the and then planned it because I've learned so much even in this.
well, I'm glad I just like sometimes I just like get in my head and I'm like, this is important to know. And I was
Yeah.
like, I hope other people actually think this is important, or they're not like, Avery, stop talking about disability. I'm just
No,
like,
this is
please
amazing.
no.
Oh, this is awesome. It's also one of those things where I'm like, oh yeah, I know these things, but putting extra time and thought into them is like a practice that I could do better at incorporating into my days, you know?
I mean, we're all that way. I even have a land acknowledgement slide, but I was like, no, I'll just remember it. And so I just hit it and then I forgot it. And I was like, okay, well, there's a learning moment.
Yeah,
Like,
there we go. Yeah. So, well, that's all good. How long were you giving folks?
we're just giving them 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
And
Okay.
so I
Cool.
think we just have,
It looks like we have 4 slides after this. We're on 18 of 22. So
yeah, well, and
awesome.
I'm trying to think. I think one of them is like, um, I think one of them's hidden. The one where it's like specifically just about the podcast is hidden. So that's fine. Actually, I'll go and unhide it since we've talked about it. So I'll bring
I'm
it up.
sorry. Your podcast is great. I like, when I read your bio, I was like, oh, cool. I love podcasts. So I'm always looking for new ones.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you like, yeah, I was like really annoyed with myself because like the platform I was using, it was like it gives you like these little badges when you hit certain milestones.
Yeah.
And I stopped at episode 74 and then realized later, like, oh, I got a badge at episode 75 and I haven't gotten it. So that that sucks. But
I'm so
I am planning to actually bring it back. So
well. I'm sorry to bring up a topic that you were perhaps like, why did she mention the
no,
podcast?
no, it's fine. It's just sometimes I don't know, I feel like I'm a little self-aggrandizing like with it. So but yeah, I mean we only have like 4 slides and it's
Yeah.
main takeaways, Q&A, and then then it's like the me stuff about
Yeah.
just this is my podcast and if you'd like to work with me, please give me money, which I still have to fill out that form, but I already told Becca I would. So I have to fill out the in-kind donation form for you.
That's all
Um
right.
We'll get that
I-
taken care of.
Sure. I can follow up later if for some reason it gets missed. Happy
I'll
to
get
do
it
so.
done in the next 2 weeks for sure. Let me see. Do we remember what time we went into breakout rooms? Was it at, I think it was actually at like 7:41.
7:40. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
7:44 now. So a little bit longer. Um, just
yeah,
let me know and I can click close all rooms. Just I think I bring everyone back.
yeah. I'd say, yeah, we'll close it right at 45. It may
Okay.
do the thing where it's like, okay, like your room's closing in 60 seconds. Like it does that sometimes. So, but I don't care. It's fine. We're doing extremely well on time. This
You
is
are
the most
great.
efficient I've been. Oh no. William's coming home. Okay.
All
I'm
right.
gonna
Do
go
you want me to
run
close all
up.
rooms? Are we on a timer?
1 second. I'm gonna go upstairs and lock my child out of the bedroom. Um, I heard him. I'm like, oh no, not my little terrorist.
Aw,
At least he's a cute terrorist.
exactly. All right.
Okay.
7:45. We're gonna close all rooms.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 60 seconds. All right.
Gives me time to reset up my room. So I can put my computer on my dresser.
Great.
Wow, that timing worked out extremely well. I was able to run while people weren't here.
People are coming back. Hi, everyone. Welcome back.
Hello, hello, everyone. Okay.
We have about 30 seconds and
Oh, we have 30
everyone should
seconds
be
left. Okay.
back. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Just let me know when everyone's
Sure.
back.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Let's go back into it.
Yes, we are almost done. So, does anyone feel comfortable sharing either what they personally are going to be taking away or just give highlights of what people in general in their breakout room did?
Feel free to come off mute and jump in.
Hi, I'll go ahead and jump in. My name is Donna Parada Kitch, and I identify as she, her, and I'm a middle-aged woman, white woman. And first of all, I would like to say I really enjoyed the training. There were some things that I hadn't thought of before, and it was really good reminders. I think two things I'd like to share. One is the chat room. Reading the chat room is so helpful because some people may not be on their main laptop or mainframe. They're using their phone, and you can't always see the chat, and there's a lot of good information that you miss. So reading the chat was very helpful. And also, if you're preparing a presentation and you're using slides to read your graphs, pie charts, I think was really a helpful reminder, because sometimes we just say looking at the chart, or you can see and then make. So I think just making, stating what you're discussing is really helpful for someone, for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Anyone else? Okay, if there's
We
no
have
one
one
else.
comment.
Oh, we got
Sorry.
one. Good. Okay.
I really like the comments about reminding people you have any pets. Reminding people about any pets you have in your home so they can prepare accordingly. I definitely agree about that.
Awesome. All
Lots
right.
of quotes on that one.
Let's go to our next slide. If you think of anything else, feel free to drop it in the chat and Courtney can read it. So, our main takeaways from today's training. So these are the things that if you, if you came to the training and you just desperately needed to take a nap instead, I understand as the mother of a toddler. Here are the main things I hope everyone just kind of takes away as their snapshot. Inclusive events improve the event for everyone, and help people that routinely may have needs that are overlooked feel valued, included, and respected. More than 1 in 4 US adults has a disability, and you can't always tell that someone has a disability just by looking at them. People are, well, and this is actually something we didn't go over explicitly, but if you are not showing that you are you value inclusion and belonging, people are going to be less likely to ask for what they need if there aren't those cues that are given throughout the event process. So that's why it's important to make sure that you're asking if people need accommodations and if you're outlining any accessibility issues that there could be with it, because that lets people know that if they need something, it genuinely will be valued and they're more likely to ask for it and have a positive experience with the event. Accessibility and accommodations apply to more than just people with disabilities. And that goes into the overall thing of just inclusion makes everything better for all people involved. And inclusion and accessibility need to be prioritized at the very start of the planning process. So with that, do we have on our next slide, do we have any questions? And this can be, if you have any questions for me personally, if you have any questions about the material. Also know if you have a question and you aren't comfortable asking absolutely everyone, as a member of the Junior League, my information is within the directory, so feel free to reach out to me for sure. And I also will have some other contact information I'll share in just a moment.
Avery, I actually have a quick question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned color blindness, and
hmm
do you know of any resources or best practices for when you're doing a presentation, how you can make sure that your presentation is going to be better than not? Is there a best practice? Is there a thing that I should be looking out for? Is it just about colors? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, so there's a few things that you could do with this. So if you are building your presentation within PowerPoint itself,
Hmm.
which I will be honest, I do a lot of Google, but if you are building it within a Microsoft product, a feature that they brought out a few years ago is an accessibility check. So that is something that you can run. It's similar to a spell check, but specifically looking for ways that you can improve the accessibility of your presentation. So that's one way. If you're using something different, like if you're using Google Sheets and or not, excuse me, I don't even know what it's called, but it's this. But if you're using a Google presentation, um, then another thing that you can do, and listen, if you want to hear me wax poetically about AI for like eons, I definitely can. But I honestly, AI truly has changed my life in so many ways. It has, in a lot of ways, become my eyes that I don't have. I'm currently using AI to help me pick out my paint colors for a Nancy Meyers inspired aesthetic for my home, and helping me figure out like other things that are very visually focused. And so if you have a presentation, if you are giving a speech or something, and you have questions specifically about like, could you please analyze the images here? Could you look at this language and make sure that it is inclusive for everyone? If you have any pointers, let me know. And AI can just like run through that for you and also do it. Like I'm a big proponent of working smarter, not harder. I said that a lot last year, but I truly believe that like there are a lot of really great technologies out there. And you know, back in the day when I would be making all this stuff like myself painstakingly, it takes a lot of time to go through all of it. But AI has really been able to make me, at a minimum, cut a lot of stuff in half. So definitely recommend leveraging that.
Thank you.
Great question. Any others?
Check the chat. Um, had some comments, and the PowerPoint slides include long descriptions or alt text.
hmm
Um, my spouse was red green colorblind, so definitely no red on green. Good call. Also, gray and pink are confusing to blind folks. Thank you, Miranda. I really appreciate that.
A true life story is that I had a shirt that I bought years ago, and I am colorblind. Since I had, okay, I'll back up a little bit. I had vision until I was 10 years old. I had 20/20 vision, and then my vision went down rapidly out of nowhere. And so I have a very strong memory, and I know what to pull from. So in my head, like I know what pink is, I know what purple is. But if I'm looking at something and I don't know that it's supposed to be off-white, pink, orange, whatever, I may not be able on my own to distinguish that now because of where my vision acuity is. And there was this, when I was in college, I bought this shirt and I still wore it like after I had graduated, I'd wear it into work. And for years, I'm not even joking. I think it was 6 years I had this shirt. Actually, I think I literally just got rid of this shirt actually a year ago. So that's actually an embarrassing amount of time that I had this shirt. But about 5 or 6 years into wearing this shirt, I mentioned, "Oh yeah, my cream shirt." And my coworker looked at me. She goes, "That shirt is pink." And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Yeah, that's pink." And I was like, "Oh no." And so I, for years, thought I was wearing a cream shirt. which wouldn't have been that bad, but I did on a few occasions pair that shirt with an orange sweater. Which there's a lot of reasons that that shouldn't have happened, but it was really terrible when I learned that. So, yeah, I agree that sometimes a light pink, honestly, in general, can be very hard to tell from a lot of different colors, and I've had that problem myself.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Oops, I clicked back. Sorry about that, everyone.
All right, hearing none, I'll do my quick little wrap up. So, as Courtney mentioned, oh, it didn't unshare. That's fine. So as Courtney did mention at the top, I do have a podcast. It's called Basically Blind. I have not released episodes in a minute, but I now have a lot more free time now that I'm not president of the league. So I will probably be starting that up again. But it is a podcast where it talks about my personal experience and I talk a lot about DEI pieces. The title of it is basically blind because, yes, I do have some vision, so I'm not quote unquote completely blind, which blindness is a spectrum. That's a whole nother tangent. But also, I do identify as being basic. I am really excited for pumpkin spice latte season. So, feel free to give that a listen if you're interested. But beyond that, as it was said, I do idea consulting. So if for any other organizations, if for a company that you work for, if you're looking for someone to come in and help with anything around accessibility, inclusion, diversity, equity, feel free to hit me up. I'd love to work with you. You can reach me through my general Gmail, which is avery.berschauer@gmail.com, or you can email me at avery@abinclusion.com. But yeah, thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm really happy we did not go over the time limit. I'm thrilled about that actually. And if there are any other questions that you have, feel free to reach out to me. And I also, two last things want to say, make sure that you do check out the inclusive event checklist. Matter of fact, I'll include that. I'll just send that directly to Courtney, and she can send that as a follow-up in the next few days to you with the uh, PDF of this presentation so that you have that resource for you. And then just as a friendly reminder that if you hadn't already, please make sure that you have your name updated to how it is in the junior league system so that Courtney can properly attribute attendance to everyone. But, with that, I will hand it back to Courtney for any closing remarks she has.
Yeah, thank you so much, Avery. I really want to say thank you for you generously donating your time and your skills to Junior League and to all of us. I will be following up with an email here in the next couple days, as Avery said, so we'll have all these resources. And thank you so much for joining us on a Sunday evening, and hopefully see you all soon, perhaps at the membership meeting on Tuesday.
Yeah. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.